the ultra-competitive Chester Webber over here. He, in his interview, said he likened this to a golf tournament. Well, I cover a lot of golf, and I know exactly what it means. It's about you. You can only control. Whatever else goes on is irrelevant. You are responsible for your own score. You don't block out all outside influences, and it's whatever you can produce, and then you see where you are.
Well, Chester is so experienced. I mean, in his younger days, he actually moved over to Scotland for a bit and was in, because he'd been driving some of the Budweiser heavy horses over in the States, and he came over and actually worked with the Ramsey family, who are a very famous family of breeders and exhibitors of Clydesdale horses. So Chester just has such a depth of experience of the driven horse, the draft horse, in all sorts of ways, and he is always competitive, and he's got some very fit and athletic horses.
47-year-old is Chester, and actually was fifth at Heathers. Well, that was a long time ago.
Now, interestingly, you'll see his grooms are sitting backwards, and I could start getting quite technical about all the different carriages, because that's an area I'm really quite familiar with.
Okay, well, go on. I'll let you loose.
So I would call this a brake. A brake is a generic term for a four-wheeled vehicle that's just slightly bigger. It's got the louvered side panels. You could call it perhaps a bigger version of a four-wheeled dog cart. You can get dog carts in 2 and 4 wheels. And it's absolutely fine that the grooms are sitting backwards, and that tailboard you see will have dropped. So sometimes on these sorts of vehicles, the seat will actually reverse, so it becomes either a brake or a phaeton. It ceases to be a dog cart. And those louvered side panels, so that if you'd been out for a day's hunting or game shooting, whatever you were doing with your carriage, you could pop your dogs in the back or your game, and it had a bit of ventilation. So those louvered side panels, obviously just purely for decoration, for the purposes of driving them in a dressage test. But the wheel width behind on these carriages has to be 158 centimetres when we get to the cones, and the chances are they'll be sitting at about that width. They get much narrower because they will all be using a different carriage for the marathon. The wheel width comes down to 125 for that, and then the carriage weight is another big thing as well. And you'll also notice that when we get to the marathons, the drivers will be sitting in the middle. At the moment, they are sitting, as we say, the sort of coachman's position, which, well, depending which way you're looking, but is to one side of the vehicle, with the right hand being the brake hand, because that traditionally, if you held all your reins in that left hand, that coachman style, then you would have your right hand free to operate your handbrake, or even use your whip to make road signals to alert other people around you as to which direction you were going in.
And from a technical point of view, how is this seeming to you as we go to the 8-second halt?
It seems very smooth so far. I mean, it's a smooth picture. His horses are very well matched in terms of colour, type, build. It's very smooth. My eye isn't going. I mean, you perhaps look at the white nose on something, but actually that's just splitting hairs. It seems quite smooth. They're just all having a little bit of a stretch out. And again, we want to see that lengthening through the neck, through the whole body, having a bit of a stretch. There's actually quite a nice bit of relief, but you can't lose the contact so much that they start going out of sequence. You still want those two nice lines, the noses and the bottoms all in line between your wheelers and your leaders. It is hard to stop them wandering, and that they don't wander so much if they're going against the boards. You're a lot more vulnerable when you're in the middle of the arena, because there aren't the same markers. When the horses, interestingly, and they do this in all disciplines, they will stick to the side of the arena or the boards or a riding school or an arena if you're exercising them at home. But to have them out in the middle of the ring, suddenly there aren't the same support markers. And yeah, just his offside wheel horse just a little bit high in its head. And you don't want those heads coming too much behind the vertical, because the judges will be very aware of how these horses have been trained at this sort of level and the caliber of judges we've got. They can see perhaps some of the training methods that might have been used. What we're wanting is just length and suppleness all the way through the body, and just striking that balance between good training at home either on the lunge or in long reins or under the saddle or as a pair, a single. There's no set way of doing it, just whatever works for you and your horses, and how much help you have on the ground. I mean, you can't do this job without a lot of manpower.
No, there is a big support team. Very
much so. And we mentioned other professions that are involved, from farriers to horse dentists to the physios to the nutritionists, everything. And for somebody like Chester, who lives in the States and a lot of his competing is done over on continental Europe, you've got to fly these horses around, you know, gone are the days of putting them on the boat and setting sail. So they have to be used to traveling long distances as well.
Well, he does spend a lot of time in Europe, doesn't he? So coming now to the rein back.
Oh,
that
was a little bit extreme. I'm not sure Chester's going to be quite punching as high as he might normally do. We'll see. We'll see what the marks are. I don't want to put the kibosh in.
Oh, you're the expert. See, yeah, I'm not suddenly pretending to be an expert, but if comparing it to Anna's and this at the moment, it just doesn't have that smoothness.
There's not a wow factor to it, and although they say it's dressage, it's got to be about discipline and containing and differentiation and all the accuracy, we still need a bit of wow factor, and Anna really did have that. She harnessed that, didn't she? Beautifully.
And that's what the difference, as he's saying, all sport is about suddenly producing that little bit of an extra dimension, whether it be you know, a booming first serve that just leaves the opponent scrabbling for Finnair, or in this case those four horses working in unison in a way that gives them an extra dimension and attracts the judges' eyes.
Yeah, and you'll see just had to let out the length of rein to let the horses just relax their jaw a little bit, take the bit, because you want to show the judges the horses are contained. Again, you don't want any jiggy jogging. That is a nightmare when they start jogging and walk. It's just one of those things. You have to stay so cool. Just keep walking, don't anticipate. Yeah, just a bit of anticipation. Do you see that from the wheel horse on the right there? Oh, they're having it. Oh, they love that. The drivers must love that camera today. Yeah. There's another one having a look. There he is.
Yeah, well,
horse scarer.
Yeah. But they did the familiarization yesterday, and the arena would have been set up just as they would have been expecting for today. No changes as he's now coming down the center line. Has he got a good line coming down? They look not quite as square as I've seen some. He looks as he's slightly on the angle.
He just hit the line a little early and sort of corrected himself. That's better. He's better after X. And he's a good showman, Chester. He knows exactly what he's got to do. I wonder if we're going to get puff cheeks from him as well. No, a smile. He's well done, Chester. He's going to keep smiling.
Well, the crowd here applauding that. There is the support team from America there. Well, they think it's good enough. But let's see, do we get that? Well, no, we're fairly a study in concentration there. He's read this movie before, so in another championship appearance, I think it's his 10th, so he knows the time of day, and obviously will be keen to get back on the podium. He was a double medal winner in Tryon with that team gold and an individual silver, which he's obviously keen to maintain, maybe 3 in a row on the podium.
Just letting his loop out, the arm just going out. But you've got to get that loop right.
See, just when you look at that and you think you've just got to let it out, you're just using your fingers while controlling 4 horses. It is a real skill. That is not something you can learn overnight.
You see he's got nice reins there. They're just rolled leather going down. So what you don't want is, because you've got so much leather in those reins, I mean, they're gone for meters and meters. Oh, that's good. Oh, well done. Well done.
Well, he has just. He's a point better than Anna Sanderman's, 41.52. It doesn't compare with his scores in his last 2 World Championships, where he's gone sub 40, I should say. But as we said, it didn't quite have that wow factor, provided a sort of different dimension as to why the judges thought it was a better score than Anna's. Anna's looked more sort of, but maybe technically perhaps wasn't quite as but we don't know. We look at the judges there. There's a pretty level playing field of marks reflecting a consistency of performance